So I want to provide an update on the temporary measures for rural employers under the Temporary Foreign Worker Program. So if you are currently working for an employer who hired you on the basis of an LMIA and you live outside of a census metropolitan area, then their IRCC introduced measures whereby those employers could retain the current number of foreign workers currently employed, even if it was over the 10% cap. Now, the caveat is IRCC requires the provinces to opt into these measures. So it's not automatic that every employer is able to access these measures. And it also wasn't as super clear on what the measures meant and in terms of how employers would access that or how workers would be able to extend their work permits. So now we know a little bit more detail. So I'm going to show you here some of the information with latest updates. So you can see eligible employers here may be able to retain the current proportion of the low-wage temporary foreign workers and benefit from an increased cap of up to 15%. That would be if the current proportion was below that, they could increase to 15% versus the current 10% cap. So now the interesting part is also that the measures will be applied once an employer has submitted a new LMIA. So that was something that was unclear, is whether or not a new LMIA would be required or if the work permit extensions would be automatic for current employees, but a new LMIA is needed. And you can notice that at the bottom here, I'll put the link to this website in the comments, but at the bottom here, you can see that by each province, there are updates on whether or not the province has opted in. So for example, Alberta announced April 17th that they will not be opting in. That doesn't mean that you have no options to extend your work permit. If you're in Alberta and you have a work permit expiring soon, there are still options under the LMIA exempt program called the International Mobility Program. So make sure you check that out. I have lots of content on that on my socials and my YouTube channel. So check that out. But you'll notice Manitoba, for example, they state the measures that are accepted that the province has opted into. So not every province is opting into all of the measures. Whereas when you look at other provinces, let's say Quebec has opted to allow their employers to retain their current proportion of low wage, but they didn't increase the cap for employers who are otherwise under that. And then you will notice that if we look, Nunavut has opted not to participate. Ontario still to be determined. British Columbia is also still TBD. I know there's a lot of discussion around that. One other thing that was interesting, I noticed that wasn't mentioned in the announcement of these measures, is that you can see sectors. So it looks like the provinces actually have the ability to segment sectors and include or exclude certain sectors in these temporary measures. That's it for now. I will keep updating as the situation unfolds.